This is the politics of everything, and I'm your host, Amber Daines. Welcome to the podcast where we want to discuss the politics of everything, from money to motherhood, nutrition to narcissism, startups to secularism, the environment to equality, and much more. Our guests are experts in their field or topic of choice, even if you've not yet heard their name. This is a bipartisan podcast, so while we love exploring varied views and get a buzz from a healthy debate, by no means is this a one-sided forum for any one political view. So please listen up and enjoy the politics. This is episode 6 of the Politics of Everything. I'm in conversation with Emma Franklin Bell, an author and artist, entrepreneur and fellow podcaster who co-hosts the Ladies Lounge podcast. Emma spent 2 decades in the performing arts industry before opening her own dance studios, mentoring studio owners in business strategy, and writing a book, How to Run a Preschool Dance Studio. Fast forward to today, Emma is the founder of the Beautiful Business Academy. The BBA has a focus on developing female creative leaders through programs that focus on training women in book writing, course creation and media and performance skills training. Welcoming Emma here, she is discussing the politics of business creativity. Hello.
Hey, Amber. Thanks for that. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great.
Pleasure. Yeah. Big shoes to fill, seeing you're a podcasting queen and I'm a newbie, but I'm really happy to have you here today.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love the medium of podcasting and I'm so excited that you've jumped on board. So it's great.
Indeed. So, I mean, going back a little bit, you clearly have a sense of the stage performer which comes into your business practice. I've seen you speak. I've been on your podcast. I've met you. So your presence has a real bit of theatre to it. So why is creativity so valuable to the way that you do business?
Well, look, I do think there's several things, and I read something just recently which Big Think put out, which was about intellectual capitalism, about the jobs of the future, and the top 3 that were on that list that this theoretical physicist talked about was creativity, imagination, and leadership. So when we're talking about what's going to happen in the future and where things might go, this is what people are looking at. And I suppose that'll be because of automation and these other things. So therefore, intellectual capitalism is kind of getting it out and about. And I just think that's fascinating. So for me, so it's kind of macro, but bringing it to me and talking about creativity here, I really think that a person's creativity is what will move them from being, a bland business to being a standout. And I suppose I use the term beautiful, and we'll talk about why, but a beautiful business that then connects with your tribe because they're connecting to your creative output that you're putting out into the world. But I mean, in practical terms, being creative is about being creative in your content, in your ideas, in the opportunities that you open yourself up to, and in the way that you deliver your products or services. And I think also, because sometimes people say, oh, but you're creative because of the performing arts and because you're an artist and things, but I don't see creativity as being artistic so much as being very kind of sort of self-navigating and very open, seeing things in new ways, cross-pollinating ideas from other industries, getting into your liberal arts books a bit, looking at history, and bringing things back in a modern twist or like whatever
Yeah, exactly. I think creativity can come from various sources. And
Yes.
what I'm hearing is it doesn't have to be, well, I'm not great at singing or
No.
painting, all those traditional forms of, if you like, art, what we think we go to art school for.
Yeah.
But I see, even in the corporates I work with, creativity is what makes businesses, like you say, stand out. They get a tribe. They get known for that more than necessarily what they produce. And I think, there's lots of big organizations who do that really well.
Yeah.
I guess for you, you've obviously tread the path of working as a professional in the arts sector. So what did that teach you about how to overcome setbacks? Because that's an industry which is known for lots of rejections, and you don't get every audition right, and you don't always get public success. But when you do, obviously it's very sweet. How did it prepare you for what was to be your path ahead?
Oh, yeah. Well, there were a few things. I mean, I did, elite classical ballet training to a really high level and was training full-time at 15 and all of that with some great Australian ballet, professionals. And wow, I mean, I suppose it taught me a few things. I mean, it taught me definitely the stuff around the show must go on kind of thing, in terms of setbacks, that you have to absolutely, keep going. You have to push on. So it's kind of like, no getting out of it if you've got a bit of a headache or, something. It's very that it is about the pursuit of the work, and the pursuit of the project that we're all pulling together to do. And so, one's kind of, petty problems or something aren't really...
Yeah, your individual circumstances can't stop the live performance happening. I guess teamwork comes into that, and that collaboration idea that it's just not really about you.
Yes, so yeah, exactly. It's not about you. It is about the work, the team coming together. It's also, when you analyse it, it's also about that focus on the process over the outcome. So you might know that you, are performing, or if you're teaching dancers, or training any artists so I was teaching ballet students as well, that to focus on the process. So focusing in the rehearsal, focusing on the craft, the technique, the evolution of that. And then when you come to the rehearsal, it's kind of this end result of all this fantastic work that you've been sowing the seeds of along the way. And so focusing on process versus outcome has been something in business that I've carried. And that really helps, again, with challenges and setbacks, because you just kind of stay in the kind of in the trenches with it.
Yes, I'm sure it sort of prepares your mindset. So thinking a little bit about that transition from dancer, dance studio owner, author, podcaster, and now you're in that female leadership space with BBA, you obviously had challenges, and the business world is different to the performing arts in many ways, but you've made that leap and successfully. So any top tips to share with other like-minded people?
Well, yeah, I think this is, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking that this is where the leadership piece does come into it, because I noticed a common theme. So if you are running studios, teaching, leading teachers, leading the studio and dancers, or if you are doing your own book, like you've done your own book, you are stepping into a leadership piece, a piece of authority there, where you're talking about your ideas, you're talking about views, you're talking about thoughts, and they're yours. Podcasting is the same. You're stepping into that leadership role. Even though you're the conduit of information, you want to be a strong interviewer, you want to draw out the wisdom from guests, and you also are thinking about the listener and their needs. So across all of those things, leading, I was sort of edging into all of those roles, into that leadership role. So to me, which is about enabling and serving, because you're enabling people and teams to do things, and you're also serving an end customer. So you're giving of yourself. So you're giving of yourself a lot to your work, your creativity, and so as a result, I see that as leadership. And in those areas, podcasting, books, dance, for me, all of those are what I term as creative leadership, because I'm drawing on my creative ideas to move the project forward.
Absolutely. And I think that's a powerful kind of theme in what you're sharing and what your manifesto is, if you like. So thinking about, I've read your book, Your Beautiful Business, which you've gifted as a free download, and obviously there's a printed version as well. This particular book, how did it come to be? And obviously the word beautiful is a theme in your book and your business and everything you do. So can you tell us, first of all, I guess, how the book kind of came to be and that idea of the beautiful in business?
Yes. Okay. So the idea for the book came because those 3 words arrived somehow to me. I don't know how, just on a Sunday afternoon or something. Those 3 words, simplify, beautify, and amplify, which are in the book and in the action plan. And so I thought, I really like those 3 words, and I'm feeling that there's some kind of sort of 3-step sort of process to those words. And so then I started playing around, and I wrote the book over, a few weekends. And
is that all? Most people, it takes a lot longer than that.
Yeah, I know. I just I had this idea, and it just it was quite quick. And then it was this piece about about the essence, and that if you simplify things, you can more easily and quickly get to what you're really all about. Because I think quite often people, they can fall into doing things similarly to other people in that industry. And so again it's the creativity, so trying to get to the essence thing. So, and the beautiful thing was, as well as loving alliteration,
I can sense that. The BBA. I'm surprised it wasn't somehow BBB, but
I know. So beautiful business. The alliteration there was that that I'd interviewed this woman who is a PhD candidate in Queensland, and Libby Sander, and she was doing all this work about spaces and the impact they have on the environment, on the workers. So the working environment when they go in, how a space and what's in it and the way that it is affects us. And she did quite a lot of look as well at awe-inspiring spaces and places that we would all term as kind of beautiful. And what's interesting is that when they did studies, they could see that when people were in these beautiful spaces and that there was a sense of beauty around them, that their physiology changed, they relaxed and all of these other things. And I see this connection with things of beauty to be quite deeply spiritual. If you go somewhere and you look out and it's beautiful, or you're in some room and it's just, there's something about you,
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, I feel like that when I go to a beautiful, say, hotel for a weekend away, and it's just luxury, or the lighting is great. And so I think you're playing with some powerful themes which would transfer not just from the entrepreneurial level, but obviously in big business too, where they're always looking for often more productivity, but within that more creativity and collaboration. And you've seen a lot of workplaces now are, they've even moved away from open plan. They're saying that's not necessarily working, but they're making people have more fluidity in the way they work and the spaces they're in. But they're adding, amazing features or bars or breakout rooms that are kind of, you want to be there. You don't think, oh my goodness, get me out of these fluorescent lights to go outside. You're kind of happy to be there.
Yeah. And so you're so much more effective.
You are. I mean, it sounds superficial, but then it's not really, because it's so important, our environment. And we do tend to thrive in some and not in others. And I suppose pivoting into the idea that, simplifying and unearthing truth, the powerful friends in, I guess, what's really a cluttered, busy, loud landscape that we're working in these days, where there's a lot more fast-paced activity. We're working longer hours, and kind of expected to be connected a lot more. Some people say 24/7. So how do you make sure that you use those themes that you talk about, simplify, beautify, and amplify, in your own life?
Yeah, well, it is very important to me. That's why I wrote the book. And so on a day-to-day or a week-to-week sort of level, in terms of simplifying, I am a minimalist. I really don't have all that many things. I like clear spaces. I like clear spaces, and I do a lot of decluttering. So every at least every 90 days, if not more, I will go through and I will declutter, cupboards and all of this. So it's this constant, and I talk about it in the book, it'll be to the charity or to the bin or to a friend. And so it's this constant decluttering. So minimalism and sort of that is just the space I'm in at the moment. Also is simplifying boundaries, so I'm very big on boundaries around time and energy management. So that I'm not, tired or resentful of spending too long out somewhere or doing something. So that one. And then 90-day goals. So with 90-day goals.
Yeah, so talk to me about that. I mean, I've heard a lot of successful leaders, and I've incorporated my business too. I have 90-day plans of what I want to achieve, because I think the 5-year plan is a little bit too lofty and can't think that far ahead. But 90 days seems manageable. So often projects for me, if they not a priority in that 90 days, I don't even think or look at them.
Yes.
So how do you do that on a regular basis? Yeah,
I've always loved the quarterly goal. So just at the beginning of every quarter. So in that first couple of days of Jan, and then the first couple of days of April and so on, I will look at the next 90 days and bring into my awareness the focus for that 90 days. And there's usually, about 3 chunky ones per month. And then in some months it might be like, wow, okay, if I'm building a website or something, that'll be one goal and that might extend over 2 months. And then I'll just, slot other goals in that I can see are going to happen in this 90 days, but no more than about, between 6 and 9, at a max 3 per month.
Yeah,
so
and that does sound like that could even sometimes be too much, depending on how big the project was and the hours involved. And I suppose within that, do you schedule in your downtime? Do you schedule in exercise? Do you schedule in weekends away? Because I think a lot of entrepreneurs burn out because they do feel that need to be always creating and on the business. But you obviously have to be at your best to do that.
That's right. So at the end of the 90 days, I always go away for 3 to 4 days. So you get a bit of crossover between the end of that 90 days and the start of the new one. So I will go away for rejuvenation and where I don't do any technology or anything. I'm just going to do that this weekend. Actually, I've brought it forward a month and I'm going to do it at the end of next month because I've just had a lot on. So I felt like I've needed an extra.
Yeah, go off the grid for a while. And,
go off the grid. But so in terms of, so that's how I bookend kind of the quarterlies. But in terms of the actual goals, no, those goals for me, they're just focused on what I want to do or need to do in that 90 days. And then in my kind of weekly routine is when I'm doing recharge kind of activity, which is kind of, in that beautify aspect, kind of baths and meditation. And, I manage to do those on a weekly basis. I'll go to a gallery. I'll go to a play. I'll watch a film that I find stimulating. So those things are kind of, beautifying my mind.
Well, they feed your soul as well, don't they? And I suppose from that, with that last aspect of amplify, what does that exactly mean for you?
Yes. Well, there's there's amplify kind of personally, and there's amplify in an external kind of business sense. With doing that personally, that is where you have, for example, those goals and posters on your walls around you or on the front of your journal if you have a journal. Also, how if you're in a mastermind of any kind, you would share certain goals or certain things that you want to achieve in terms of business with those accountability partners. So you're sort of amplifying your ideas out further than you. And then in terms of a business sense, obviously, amplifying means a consistent amplification of your work. So that is doing your weekly newsletter, your weekly podcast, your social media every day. But that's on a sort of a more commercial level. Yeah,
yes. That makes sense. You sort of divide it into two, which I think is really sensible.
Yeah.
So with your newest venture, the Beautiful Business Academy, who are you really aiming to work with there, and how's it kind of different from the other? There's lots of online leadership programs that women can access, and the female entrepreneur space is particularly crowded, I'm finding. So what are you doing to do this differently, and who you really focused on in this?
Yeah, so this is focused on women who do sort of feel a call to lead in their business. It is for women who are predominantly in the education, training, information or marketing. So where they're creating, projects or seminars or workshops or programs based on their kind of their knowledge, their IP, rather than product-based businesses. For this particular for the BBA where it's going, because the focus here is that they are drawing on their creativity to then write books and programs and other material. So with the book side of things, if you just jump into that. Yes.
I mean, you're very focused on helping facilitate the book writing process. Not everyone's a fantastic or natural author. So even though they all say we've got a book in us somewhere, how do you actually get that into a systemized format so that people respond to it and actually feel like they can achieve it?
Oh, well, yes. Well, when they follow the program, Manuscript Mastery, which is my signature program that I'm launching soon, next month, what we do is we do follow a very very deep process for the first 4 weeks, and then the next 4 weeks we work collectively and actually get in and actually do it, which is based on National Novel Writing Month, which is where you actually kind of hothouse together and you actually do the work. But in terms of, so there is a bit of a prerequisite. So you have to be a writer of some form. So with women that I work with in business, even when I was doing dance studio mentoring and that it's not really for the beginner. It is for people who do write. They might even write a weekly newsletter and that's it. Or they might have dabbled around with a blog. They might have a blog,
or they might have, I understand. So they're sort of on the journey. They're sort of not at that early pre-launch phase. No. They're looking to add on to what they're doing already.
And they know a fair bit about writing already. They know the basics. So so the basics aren't there. So we dive into things around, your reader, your signature story, your writer's voice. So we go right through a process so that you're creating a book that's quite strategic, but also doing the creativity aspect. We're tapping into making it unique and your voice is threaded right through it, and the development of that. So you have to be of a certain level, and then we hothouse and you do your full first manuscript, your 30,000 words, and then we talk about editing and publishing.
Right. And so how long would that take on? Like, how long are you hoping that each person will be doing this for? I mean, the Academy does it.
Yes, an 8-week program. Yeah, 4 weeks of theory, but fun theory, because, me and my way of operating is fun. So it's 4 weeks of theory, fun.
Fun theory, everybody.
Fun theory, one module a week.
Apparently.
Yeah, one module a week. And then 4 weeks of actually writing. But even in that 4 weeks, we do actually do a lot of writing. You write your signature stories, you lay out a whole heap of your book, So it's going to be fun and interesting. And so that's what's different. The difference is that these female entrepreneurs are called to leadership. They're called to lead, and they want to do it in a creative way. They want to feel open to be really expressive of their own ideas and experiment with their ideas and not feel limited. So we're creating open space for that to happen.
Well, that sounds absolutely perfect. I can think of lots of women who would benefit from that. So with your podcast, The Ladies Lounge, you launched that with a friend of yours, Anna Massey, who also is an entrepreneur. And to date, you've had over 10,000 downloads, and that's in about a year. Is that right?
It's in about, so in late July we started. So from about August was when it was all happening.
So, less than a year, which is very impressive. So how did this project come together?
How
did you get that podcast going?
Well, we've been mates for a while, and then we originally wanted to do events because I was doing one-to-one mentoring and in the dance space, and crossing over a bit into broadening out with female entrepreneurs, and Anna was doing some transitional coaching with people from corporate, I think, to business, and so I said, okay, so we could do events and we could have people come to these events and run workshops. And she said, no, why don't we do a podcast instead? And I sort of initially thought, oh no, the tech and all of these other things.
Oh, I've just been through that. I feel that barrier that you would have felt initially.
Yes,
but
that's
you
right.
triumphed over that.
Yes, that's right. And so we came up with the idea on her lounge. We tossed around these different ideas, and then I think I said, oh, what about the ladies' lounge or something? And we just said, all right, let's run with it. And she ran off and got some guests, and I said, all right, I'll work out the tech. And I had a couple of friends who had podcasts already, so I asked them some things, and the rest I sort of pieced together, and she pieced together these guests, and we decided to. We interviewed 50 guests in 3 months.
That's amazing. Batching. You've taught me the world of batching.
Yes. So
did you launch with a couple and then you got one a week? That's kind of your.
We launched with 3. A friend of mine, Adam Franklin, who's a great podcaster, he said, launch with 3 so that when they open the iTunes podcast app, there's 3 in there. So I took that bit of advice, and then we had the idea that we would drip feed once a week at Monday at 9 a.m. And that was great. And one little rookie error was that we were so excited and all into it that we did interview far too many people, and the batching was far too much. I mean, we interviewed you, for example, on Monday.
You overbatched.
We overbatched, yeah, because yours will be, it's about 2 months from your.
Yes, which is about what I'm doing as well. So I think
we were 5 months.
If you'd done 50 odd, you would have had a year's worth.
We did 5
from
months,
the get-go.
And we thought, we had a year's worth, and we thought we can't do that because people might have gone out of business or anything. So
anything could have happened, I guess. Yes, indeed.
So we ended up releasing 2 over the summer. So for the months, I think of December, January, we released 2 a week to catch up. And, but we had some fantastic wins in the beginning. Within 4 weeks, we had Mark Burris. And then once you get a big name like that, you can spin off because you have that sort of credibility then. And so then when you approach someone else, you can say, oh, and we had Mark on. And
would you like to join us in this esteemed podcast?
Yes.
So I think it's absolutely fantastic. And obviously, even though it's called the Ladies Lounge because it's you and Anna in a lounge room, in her lounge room, literally, you obviously not just focused on women. You interview a lot of male leaders as well.
Yes, we initially started out as a platform and a voice for women. I'm very focused on women's voices getting out there, which is why my business is very focused on that. But then with the Ladies Lounge, we thought after a while, maybe we should incorporate some men in here. And so So now it's not 50-50. It's still probably 70% women. 70% women and 30% men. Yes. But
interesting. I've enjoyed so many. There's such varied people, and I think that's what the platform really allows you to do, have exposure to different mindsets, different people, I guess different levels of success, and draw upon them, as well as, I guess, be a platform, as you say, for
it's
for
been
the audience.
unbelievable. It's been amazing. I mean, with my book, I had one strategy, and that was to build, my tribe for the BBA, which I'm doing. And with this was kind of more about personal brand and being able to get connected with these really interesting people and sit down and then have leverage conversations through the platform. And it was just, it's just been fantastic. It's been so amazingly good. And sort of people always say, oh, do you get money from the podcast? Well, we get indirect money because you have people who then approach you to work with you one-to-one, on a podcast that they want to do. I just had 2 this week,
Exactly. It's a great chance to kind of, as you say, like widen your tribe and I guess bring in other people, because those guests also have their own tribe. So
yes,
tapping into that as well.
It's amazing. Yeah. I really recommend it, folks out there.
Everyone get onto the podcasting world.
Yes.
So from your own experience, do you have any mentors, inspirational figures that you've kind of drawn a lot of ideas from? You don't have to name them, but there's often, we haven't done this on our own. None of us have, if we've had any business or career success. So I guess who would they be, and, what have they really taught you in business and in life? Okay.
So yes, I've always been of the idea that having mentors is really important. So in the early days, I had some one-to-one mentoring for a few months with Julia Bickerstaff, and she was really great when I was starting out in business probably 4 years ago. With the studios, and she was great. I spotted her on Koshi's Business Builders and thought, oh, I like her, and I'll just get in touch with her. And then over the years,
that's very millennial of you, just to think I'll just contact that person on TV.
Oh,
because
yes.
Someone of my vintage, we'd be like, oh no, they won't speak to me. I'm not going to do that. I'll just wait to have to meet them one day.
I think she was quite taken aback. Yeah, she was like, oh yes, okay, we could organise that. Yeah. So that was fun. And then most recent mentor I've had is Christina Guidotti, who's she mentored me for about 3 months, one-to-one, very high level thought leadership mentoring, which was fantastic. Wow, she was amazing. She's in that thought leaders space. And then Chantel Duffield, who runs an incredible online business called Studio Expansion, so it is in the performing arts space. She is the one who introduced me to the whole world of online. I was a bricks and mortar person, and a couple of years ago I did a partnership with her with my book and our 2 tribes connecting, and we did a JV thing and a wholesale and a whole bunch of things. And she just taught me this whole world of online stuff that I had no idea about, building your tribe and online programs and exposing yourself further and globally. And so she's been a fantastic person. She's amazing. And then from an inspirational level, people who I don't know would be Marie Forleo. I did her course, and I just think she's a very polished presenter. And
yes, and she has a big sort of following too. It sounds like you're sort of tapping into people at different levels and stages, which I think is a valuable part of the mentoring process.
Oh yeah, and I really agree that think that people do need mentors. And then we just interviewed Jack Delosa, that was released today. I've always followed Jack's work. I think he's a really interesting young bloke, mixing kind of spirituality with strong enterprising business skills and training. So, his book Unprofessional was I've highlighted like every page in that. It was amazing.
Yes.
And then creatively, Elizabeth Gilbert.
Yes, of course. And we've all enjoyed so much of her books, and I've seen her speak, and she definitely she embodies everything she says, which I think is an important part of that authenticity piece with the mentors and inspirational figures we look up to.
Oh, yeah, and she's such an ambassador for creativity.
She is, exactly.
Yeah.
So just to close off our podcast time together, if you could sort of share some of your tried and true steps or sort of a top 3 or top 5 practical tips that the audience could draw upon in the idea of the business of the politics of business creativity, what would they be?
So one of the first things would be, if we're doing top 3 tips, to be quite experimental in business. So when I talk to clients about using their creativity, I do talk about being quite experimental with your marketing and with your ideas, because people can get quite attached to things and then get upset if they don't work.
Yes. So is that the idea in some ways of experimenting? And I've heard other entrepreneurs talk about fail. If you're going to fail fast and move on in a way, like if something doesn't work.
Yeah, and I think the idea of experiments just takes a bit of heat off it. So you can sort of think, I'm launching a new project or something, and I don't know if it's going to work. So it's not a tried and true thing that you've been doing for 5 years or something. It's a new thing. So I'm not going to throw, massive ad spend or all these other things. I'm going to do it a bit lean. I'm going to experiment. I'm going to ask a few people. I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to see what happens. And if over, a month or 3 months, it's not great, or, a couple of people did it and they, weren't that keen, or it just didn't land very well, I think you just sort of can say, oh, that's all right. We'll just sort of redirect,
That's right. And I think we can now. We can sort of, pivot ourselves very quickly and nimbly.
Yes.
And I often think it's part of the exciting part of the journey in some ways, that not everything works, and you can reflect on that and learn from that too.
Oh yeah, totally. And I mean, the ladies' lounge, that was a complete and utter experiment. I mean, we just said, no one really knows us, and who's going to want to come on our show? It was very, very sort of grassroots and very humble, and we just said, look, we'll do it for I don't know, several episodes, and we'll just see what happens, and so that's what happened.
But it took off from there. And I suppose, is there any other sort of pieces of advice?
Oh, yeah.
I love the idea of experimenting. I think that's powerful.
Yeah, so number 1, experimenting. Number 2 would be consistency. So in terms of with your work being pretty prolific, I do see a direct correlation with, response in the market to your consistency. So this is why I talk to people about, if you're going to do a podcast, you want to aim to do it weekly. You've got people out there who do daily podcasts. Goodness me, we don't want to.
Wow, that must be their full-time job.
I know.
For a lot of us, we podcast and we do other things.
Exactly, and it's like, how much stress do we want in our lives? Anyway, so I think once a week is great. For your podcast and your newsletter, and also once a day. If you're using Instagram, you want to be consistent on there. Daily, I think is good. And whatever your channel is, if it's LinkedIn, you might want to be making sure you're doing your published post, once a week. Again, that consistency, because again, it's almost like on a subconscious level as well. People see that, and they just get the trust building from your consistent work. So they see your brand, they build trust, and they know what you're about. It's amazing. We go to events and people go, oh, it's you're from the ladies' lounge. Oh yeah, I listened to that or something. So it's amazing. And, same with the weekly newsletter. I just got a lovely email this morning about, that idea that you sent me about primary values, which was my recent one. Wow, that had me thinking today, and so you're just making an impact on people. It's about your influence. And I think if you're building that influence, you can really change people's lives. So that would be number 2, the consistency. And then number 3 would probably be boundaries. So not chasing too many things, and because it goes back to the simplify thing, reading the one thing and essentialism if you're feeling a bit sort of pulled in several directions in your business, to have some boundaries, and even boundaries on, going and joining too many things or going to too many events or any of this. again, you know, you might just cut that back and I'm just going to go to one event a week. I think it's good to get out there. Fantastic. Depending on your business.
Of course, but I see what you're saying. You need to really,
yes.
I think, plan ahead and think, well, what's the impact? If I'm out 3 nights a week, does that mean that in the morning I'm going to be tired? I won't be as creative, or
yes.
whatever it might be. You've kind of got to know yourself, I think, too.
Yeah, so reining things in, and then also always analysing. So my 4th one is always analysing. You know, so I went to those 3 events, and how did I go there? You know, did I meet some really interesting people, have some interesting conversations that, you know, not even that they're going to lead to sales, but, you know, was it a fascinating, did I get something, did I give something, you know? So always analysing why doing things, I think is critical. Yeah. So
I think that's fantastic advice. Well, it's been awesome to have you on the Politics of Everything. This is Emma Franklin Bell we're speaking to. There'll be some show notes with some details of how to reach out to her, but you've been listening to the Politics of Business Creativity on my podcast, The Politics of Everything. And if you do love this program, please make sure you rate us and like us. And until next time, please keep well. Thanks for listening today. If you've enjoyed the Politics of Everything, we thrive on feedback. So please add a short review and share the podcast with your network, your friends and family. I'm also always on the hunt for fabulous new guests. So if you've got a view to share and an idea how to get our listeners excited, please email me at amber@bespokecomms, that's BESPOKECOMMS.com.au, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Until next time.